If you could tell us a little about yourself and what motivated you to run for office.
Well, I am a engineer, general engineer. I've worked for the agency for about 27 years now, and my background is electrical design. And I've got a family. I've got two girls going to one of the high school, Lee Summit West. I've got my wife, who I just was hired on this last semester. She's a native-speaking Spanish teacher, and she teaches at North and also junior high. And so I think one of the reasons I volunteered or wanted to get onto the school board and run was that I saw a need. I saw a need for some qualified experience on the board. And so I fit that need with my experience and background. And that's why, I'm not about trying to get on these committees and stuff like that. I really like education and public education, and I've served on a board before, and a school board, and I really enjoy it. And so I missed it, and I saw this need, and I believe I can help. I think I'm something that this community is looking for.
Okay. What experiences have helped you prepare for the professionalism and leadership required of school board members?
Well, as I said before, I was a school board member in town I grew up in as a high school, and I was in Butler, Missouri. I was elected for 2 terms down there, and very much enjoyed it. I started out, didn't know what I was getting into, and then of course as your experience and time goes on, you get training and you learn things and stuff like that. So I served 2 terms as a school board member, also as the treasurer, as the secretary, which I enjoyed the most, and also vice president and president. I'm also a certified master school board member, and I had been probably about halfway through towards the end of my first term. And I also served on the leadership and development committee with the Missouri School Boards Association. That's a great organization, and I used to attend all their training sessions as much as I could. And also, I have experience advocating both at the state and the federal level for school, public education, and I've also have a Bachelor of Science degree in electrical engineering, so obviously education is important to me. It's allowed me to get where I'm at and make a better life for me and my family. And finally, not least, was when I moved here about 2.5 years ago, I wanted to just get a lay of the land because I'd been gone for a number of years. I lived here 11 years previous to that. So I called up the city and enrolled in the Leadership Academy class that they put on. And of course, had opportunities to get reacclimated with the government and the new Lee Summit Water District building and the fire departments and stuff like that. So those, in a nutshell, are my experiences. A direct board experience, certified. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm getting into, and that's my background.
Okay. How does our district maintain and continue to improve its services and reputation?
The obvious question that you might typically hear is hire great teachers and hire great administration, but I have a little different twist on that. Those are true, but I think what this community needs right now is we need the school board to step it up. We need to elevate up one more notch here. In a way, from my experiences, I see that the school board has lagged behind what the district has accomplished. And I mean, it's a wonderful district, and everybody has high expectations. But the way I see it's time for the school board to focus on themselves. We need to establish a new culture with the school board and learn what it means to be a school board member and how to go about accomplishing those things that need to be done. And that's not difficult, but it's important to understand that the culture of this community has very high expectations. And that means it requires more from us as school board members, and we need to be able to meet those expectations. And the only way you can do that is through training and through experience from other people that you admire or respect or see that what they do is perfect. It works. So as that elevated school board membership, you need to focus on the CSIP. You know, that plan, the school improvement plan, is there because that documents the achievements and the goals that we're trying to accomplish. And you need to focus in on that as a school board member. And everything that you do is about the CSIP and how that relates to the education of the child, of the student. Okay? That's your mindset. It's not about finances and getting all nitty-gritty about this or this. It's all about the CSIP, and that's how we raise the bar, is by focusing on that. And so another important thing is meeting that challenge is learning how to check your egos, check my ego as a board member, listening to the other board members, treating the other board members with respect, and making sure that my vendetta, my personal vendetta, is not what I want to accomplish. It's about what is in the CSIP, what we develop as a group, along with the superintendent, the goals for the district, the achievements that we're trying to accomplish, and we all move in that direction.
Okay. The R7 district bylaws clearly define the relationship between the school board and the R7 staff. Please describe how you envision your working relationship with staff.
This is one of those things that you learn as you become more experienced as a member and you gain more training. You know, it's important to go out and make yourself available to the public, but also to the school staff. You know, we as school board members, we kind of have an opportunity to encourage people and show interest and be a part of the community. But it's really important to maintain this chain of command. You know, we have a superintendent, we have administration, and we have staff. And what we don't want to do as school board member is have a constituent come up and say something and then feel like, well, we want to help that person, so we'll go talk to the teacher or we'll go talk to the principal. You see, what's important to make sure that we understand is that when that constituent comes up about a concern, you know, we evaluate, well, what kind of information are they bringing on the table here? Is this talking about a teacher? Is this talking about a student? Or is it talking about a policy that they don't like? So if it has to do with personnel or students, we need to encourage that person. You know, you really need to follow the chain of command. You need to go talk to the teacher. If that doesn't work, you go talk to the building principal, you know. And if that doesn't work, you go talk to the superintendent. But it's that chain of command that needs to be referred to and followed by, you know, the school board member. Now, if it has to do with policy or something like that, well, there's an opportunity to make sure that maybe we talk about it with the superintendent and the president, the board president, maybe get that on the agenda and have an open discussion and debate about it during our you know, official time. So those two things are important.
Okay. Please summarize your qualifications and level of financial expertise appropriate to govern an approximate $300 million school budget.
Thank goodness that I don't have to be an accountant. And I'll tell you why. That's a question that gets asked a lot. And there's a misconception about that. You know, when you're on the board and you think, okay, I'm supposed to be responsible for this budget. And that's not true. That's just not true with a school board member. There are things that you are responsible for, but let me take you through this step here. The Missouri statute requires that every school district establish a budget, period, okay? And that needs to be done. And the statute also says that the format has to be a specific layout. So all the school districts have to provide this budget and it has to be laid accordingly. And then it also says that that budget will not be in a deficit by the end of the school year, okay? So we've already got laws laying out what it's going to look like. It's going to lay out you're not going to be in a deficit, so you can't do that. And then it also, according to the MSIP, you are required to have your budget audited. So you've got an auditor, and you've also got the MSIP team that reviews your budget to make sure it follows the standards. Both those two people are making sure the standard is followed. okay? So then we come back to the table, and guess what? Now we need to have a budget officer. Why? Because board policy says that you'll have a budget officer. Now, this is where it gets kind of interesting, is the budget officer is required to follow all the line items. He's required to assemble all the information in this format that has to be presented to the board. And Missouri statute also says anybody working with the budget shall help this budget officer do that, okay? So now we put together, and guess what? We've got bean counters who are licensed and certified accountants and stuff who work for the district. They're required to bring all this information, all comes up. And then they come up and bring it to the board, and you might think, well, so what is the board member supposed to do? Well, there's two things. He's supposed to make sure that the money that's allocated for any particular program is allocated according to the CSIP, okay? And he can identify why that, see, remember the CSIP's the goals, okay? And then he's able to articulate that goal and the money being spent on that goal and how that ties back to the individual learning and education of the child. That's the first responsibility of the board member, not to bean count. We've got people, professionals, by policy who are supposed to do that. The second responsibility is to approve the budget, period. You know, once the budget is approved, then that lets the district do their operations. It's kind of like Congress. If Congress doesn't approve the budget and it gets signed into law, you know, we go home, or there's no work. You don't go on. It's the same way with the school board. We're not supposed to bean count. We're supposed to approve the budget and know where the money's going and justify why it's being spent, and then that allows the bean counters to do their job, and that's account for every single line item and make sure that that money that's required for that particular program gets spent there.
Okay. What is your approach to conflict resolution among board members?
My personal philosophy on contract, on resolution like that is, and I have personal experience with this, is you will treat your other peers with respect and courtesy, okay? And that means that I have to treat them that way, and they have to treat me that way. So in that framework is about collaboration, and you've heard that word, you know, collaboration this, collaboration that. But the key about collaboration is finding out what each other's needs are. You know, for example, I was in a meeting, I think I had been on the board for a year. It was time to hire a new superintendent. And we were down to 2 candidates. And I laughed because I was the only one at that point who wanted a particular candidate, and the rest of the board wanted another candidate. And I turned to the president and I said, why do you want this candidate? What are you thinking about? What is it so good about him? Why, you know, that you're not? Well, the president, he looked at me and his face just went blank, and he got angry. You know, in my quest to try to find out his way of thinking, he thought I was attacking his decision. And he's like, nope, that's it. I've made my decision. I'm not talking anymore about it. I'm done. And I was just left with no answers. And then I had a peer next to me. He goes, you know, Larry, if you think about it, the candidate that we're thinking about, he was the building principal for quite a few years and had quite a bit of success for that. And guess what? We have an elementary school, the same as his experience, who's in the same situation. And we need to turn that around and get some leadership in there. And that's exactly what his experience is. Well, as soon as he said that, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. I understand. But what I didn't understand is I didn't know what I needed to know. And because of this communication between my peer next to me, I was able to see, we were collaborating. He helped me to see what I didn't what I didn't know. And then we moved forward, and we all said, yes, that's the man. So the key is communication. And when you communicate, we collaborate, it's about understanding each other's needs, being able to communicate in that environment honestly, with respect, and maintain that decor throughout the meeting.
Okay. Along that topic, please Please describe a group deliberation experience in which you held a minority opinion but were ultimately successful in reaching a consensus.
I don't know how I can expand on that anymore after what I just said. I changed my mind, and thank goodness I did, because that was a wonderful relationship with that superintendent, and there was a lot of trust both ways. So
Good. Please explain the roles of district leadership, superintendent and school board, with respect to the broader community.
You know, there's leadership from the board. You know, look, things have changed over the years. You know, in the past, typically leadership, we had the superintendent, and he would come to the meetings, and he would have a program that he wanted to implement or go down with, and he needed funding, and he would come before the board and say, this is what I want to do. And the board would look at it and it's like, nah, I don't like that. Go do something else and bring it back. Well, that's not a very efficient way to do business. And things have changed now, you know, because people in the community expect more from that, out of that, than that. Now what we've got is a co-leadership type of situation with the superintendent. And there's a caveat to that co-leadership, is you need to be comfortable with with certain aspects of the different leaders, but there's a lot of overlap there. And as a board member, you need to be comfortable with that overlap and understand where you kind of stop and where the next person picks, or the superintendent picks up. So as far as leadership and the community, is making sure that we work in that environment, in this co-leadership. And the superintendent, or let me back up, the board is about asking the what questions. In other words, what are the challenges the district are coming up against? You know, for example, we've got equity here. That seems to be a challenge for the district right now. Or what are the future challenges that we are going to face? And the board's role in that leadership is to try to identify those challenges and make sure that there are resources, financial probably, whatever, to meet those challenges. But then at the same time, the superintendent is about the how. We've asked the question what, but the superintendent needs to, we delegate it to him. How are we going to meet the challenges? How are you going to go about with your administration coming up with a plan to meet that challenge? And that's how that co-leadership works together in order to put together a united front that the community can see.
Current data provided by our school district shows certain subsets of students are underperforming in math, science, and other categories. How do you interpret this data and propose the LSR7 board address it?
Well, there's obviously an achievement gap right now that we've seen, and we need to address that. And that's been a difficult situation the last few years. So we have to go ahead and face that achievement or that gap, and we have to understand that when you have an achievement gap with a minority population, that there's two ways of looking at this. You know, you've got what you call equity, and then you've also got what is equal. And those two terms get interchanged very easily. And so when we try to focus in on how to close that achievement gap, first of all, the equal means that all of the students have the opportunity to learn and to experience education under the same building, the same structures, a healthy environment. They have good nutrition. Okay, they all have a warm place to go and work that's safe and secure. So basically, when we're talking about equality, we're talking about all of the students getting the same thing. But when we're talking about a minority group where there's an achievement gap, now you have to switch over to providing resources that are more focused onto that group of students that are behind on the achievement gap. And so that's where the equity comes in. It is identifying that that group of individual are going to need more resources, and that may mean that more money or more people or more teachers or something like that. What's important to understand when we go down that road is that there's no easy solution. There isn't, if we do this and this and this, that group's going to come up. It's not. We picked all the low fruit. We know that good physical facilities promotes education, so we provide warm, safe facilities. We know that good nutrition promotes learning, so we provide good nutrition at our schools and stuff like that. And we make sure that we have good busing and transportation so that everybody has the opportunity to come to our wonderful buildings and stuff like that. But that's the low-hanging fruit. The harder part is trying to figure out how to reach that minority group so that we can bring them up.
What do you consider major challenges and priorities for the district, and how will you address?
Let's see. I think the biggest challenge for the school district, and I hinted on this earlier, was it's time for the school board to up their game. That's the biggest challenge right now. And I come at this from my personal background because I see, as I said earlier, that the board's behind and we need to move forward. We need to meet up there with what the district has got. That means that we've got to be leaders. When you see school board members bickering, okay, what happens is the public sees us bickering, sees us dealing over these little minute details, and they go the back and forth, and that causes distrust in their leadership. You see, bickering causes distrust, and that's what has to change. That's what I mean by upping the game for the school board. And the only way you can do that is being in an environment where you learn how to communicate, when you learn how to respect each other's opinions. You ask the hard questions. You ask yourself, is the way I think going to attribute to the success of the education and learning in the schools? And you need to be able to say, you know what, if my way of thinking is not right, how do I change that? I need to be able to listen or see knowledge that will allow me to change my way of thinking. So we need to learn as school board members how to do that. We need to be able to make informed decisions and the right decisions and decisions based on the knowledge that's relevant to our situation. It's not easy.
Okay. What do you believe should be a primary focus of the school board and your role as a board member?
I think the biggest thing on that is my role is I would like to be in a role where I can show the school board, this is good business. This is how we go about doing good business. This is how we represent our constituents. And because of my experiences, I started out in a board there was a lot of conflict. There was actually physical altercation, and that's because of that lack of communication and that lack of goodwill and lack of understanding the other members on the board, So the superintendent is a big part of this too. The superintendent's he's got a tough job. You guys ever seen the commercial herding cats? Remember the old Super Bowl commercial, herding cats? School board members, we're just a bunch of cats, You walk in the room, we're all sitting there, we'll look up, we're not running up to get petted, we just look at him, What do you got? What are you going to give me? You want to come over and pet me, or maybe I'll go get something to eat and I'll be back. We all have our own way of thinking in our own minds, and it's very important for the superintendent to herd the school board members. And by that I mean developing that relationship with them, being there to support, being there to give it information on what's going on, be there to show what are the numbers or what is he thinking about specific things. So when we talk about my role, my role on that is I've been there and done that. I've been a huge part of changing the way the school board functions and talks to each other and interacts with each other. As a matter of fact, my superintendent at the time said, you know what, Larry, you really do bring a sense of professionalism to the school board, and we really appreciate that. And I appreciated when he said that, you know, because we are here representing the public, and we need to look like we're representing the public.
Okay. What is your long-term vision for our district?
You know, I think we've reached a plateau now where we are going to, where the students have high expectations, the community has high expectations, and it's obvious that the students are performing very well. It's really hard to expand on that. When you're already at the top, it takes a whole lot of effort to get a little bit higher, you know. And like I said earlier, the low fruit's gone. So now we're trying to find those ways to inch up. You know, we've got apartment complexes in the community that are coming up. This is a wonderful place to live. We're trying to draw people in. And it's important to be aware that with those people that come in, it's quite possible that gap, that achievement gap, the minority achievement gap may increase. And so we need to be ready for that. You know, if we have a higher population that achievement gap is a part of, you know, that affects the districts and its reputation. And we need to be there. We need to be ready to meet that challenge when that population increases. Okay? So that is the long-term goal, is continually going down the road of how we're going to meet that challenge and what are we going to do to get us there. And that means focusing on the CSIP and adjusting it. You know, we go down the road, we try things. Like I said, it's not cut and dry. We may make a mistake. That's okay. It's okay. You know, we learn from that mistake. We come back, we reevaluate the CSIP, we make some adjustments, and we keep going. As I said before, when you're this high and trying to achieve that little bit, it's a whole lot of work to do that. So you can't be discouraged. You got to have a team, you got to have a board, you got to have a superintendent that have a trusting relationship. They know where they're going, and they're going after it, and they're going to be the champion for it. And they're not going to give up. And that's all we can do right now.
Okay. Larry, you got 2 minutes. Anything else you want to cover?
I think, as I said earlier, we came back up here because I wanted to be here. My wife wanted to be here. And we remembered Lee Summit before, and we always knew we were going to come back. We just left because of my grandparents and their grandkids. So we came back, and we're very fortunate and happy to be a part of a wonderful school district. I want to be on the board, and I do ask for your help, and I believe in it. I advocated for it, and it's a wonderful experience, and it's a lot of work. And my wife is a native-speaking Spanish teacher, and she's working for the district now. So we're all in, you know. I got 2 girls, one's a senior and the other's a sophomore. And we just really enjoy being here, and I really want to contribute to this community, and I can contribute by being on the board and being part of a wonderful team to lead the school.